Hi there, this is Lisa, and I just wanted to make a video about the power of language. As a KG hypnobirthing teacher, a lot of my teaching looks at how the words we use to ourselves and others can influence the way we feel or the reaction we get, and how we feel has got a huge impact on how our bodies respond to situations. So firstly, let's look at what I mean by how our bodies respond. Our involuntary responses, such as our heart rate, our blood pressure, the size of our pupils, our digestive system, the things that our body does without us having to think about them, they're all controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And there are two main parts to this system, and a third that we're not going to think about today. So most people are probably aware of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, and this is triggered when we're in danger or when our mind thinks we're in danger. It causes adrenaline to course through our bodies and makes our heart rate increase. It takes the blood supply away from the areas of the body that aren't going to be needed and puts it all into our limbs, ready for fighting or running away from the problem. And it's a very primitive system, so its only job is to keep us alive, to get us to survive danger. Okay? But the danger that this primitive system recognises is things like large predators or natural disasters, things that we can run away from or fight, things that need action, and that's where the adrenaline comes in. It prepares our body for action to get us out of danger and keep us alive. The second main part of the autonomic nervous system is the parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest system. And this response is triggered when we feel safe. It allows the return of normal internal function of our body. It allows the normal secretions for digestion and the hormones of the body to start flowing again. And it allows blood flow back to all the organs, providing them with oxygen and nutrients and taking away all the waste products like lactic acid, for example, in muscles. So these two responses alternate. They can't both be switched on at the same time. It's either one or the other. And they generally complement each other. So what does that mean for labour and birth? Well, labour and birth are normal body processes that we don't consciously control. And in labour, the muscles of the uterus work to move the cervix out of the way and encourage the baby down the birth canal. And just like other muscular systems in the body, the muscles of the uterus are designed to work efficiently and comfortably. And the muscles of the uterus are stimulated by oxytocin, a hormone that flows through our bodies when we feel safe, when we feel relaxed, when we feel loved. But oxytocin is blocked by adrenaline. And the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest system, allows plentiful oxygenated blood to flow to the uterine muscles. But when the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, is triggered, adrenaline spikes and prepares us for action. Adrenaline blocks the oxytocin, and that makes uterine activity less efficient, or sometimes causes labour to stall completely. And that makes perfect sense in terms of our primitive survival system that's thinking about a large predator, because who would want to have their baby in front of a tiger? It wouldn't be safe. But in our modern world, the dangers that we face, the dangers that our mind hears about, they're not necessarily large predators. We can't always run away from them or fight them. So our modern lives often lead to pulses of adrenaline being released throughout the day. We're rushing for work, the bus is late, the traffic's bad, there's a deadline, there's too many demands on your time. You can see adrenaline is building. And often then we don't have the physical release of running or fighting to burn off that adrenaline. So we're left with adrenaline in our bodies for a lot longer. And that can happen during pregnancy. And then if we think about labour and birth, our culture often tells us it's a scary, painful thing. And then when we're in labour, we take ourselves to a big, brightly lit building full of strangers, not exactly relaxing, so it's easy to see how the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, gets triggered and the adrenaline starts pulsing, starts peaking, starts climbing. And then we add in the language. The language, oh my word, the language. You remember how I said at the beginning that the sympathetic nervous system is triggered when we're in danger, or when our mind thinks we're in danger. And this is where the words come in. Words can trigger the sympathetic nervous system. So in our everyday lives we might say things like, this traffic is killing me. I'd rather die than do something. All of those words will release pulses of adrenaline, because our mind hears if something's that dangerous that we might die, or it's killing us, then it's got to be scary and it's a predator, we need to get away from it. So in terms of labour and birth, we often think birth is dangerous, birth is scary, birth is painful. Even if we don't say those things to ourselves, but we hear those things in the stories that other people tell us, or we see images of birth as frightening, something we need saving from, and the general impression is that women's bodies are faulty, it's easy to see why our sympathetic nervous system might be triggered in labour. Advertisers know that words and images stay with us, and that's why advertising works, and why big brands pay loads of money to put their words and their images in front of us on a regular basis. So one of the main teachings of KG hypnobirthing is around the language that we use to ourselves throughout pregnancy, and the language, the stories and images that we're exposed to. And it's why the relaxations that we practice are designed to release subconscious fears and then build confidence. Confidence in women's ability to birth their babies, confidence in the systems that we find ourselves in, because birth in the UK is statistically very, very safe. Yes, there are times when help is needed, and thank heavens we live in a part of the world where we can get that help quickly. And of course, there are devastating times when the outcome isn't right. But making birth more scary, heaping women, their families, their caregivers with more and more anxiety doesn't make birth safer. A well-functioning, relaxed body makes birth safer. And this is why it's important to think carefully about the words that we use and the messages that we send, and quite deliberately start telling ourselves and our friends and our families and the wider community that women are amazing. Their bodies are designed for birth, and their bodies can work powerfully to birth their babies. And I passionately believe that, and that is why I love teaching women and their partners in pregnancy, because I see a change in them. I see how their confidence builds, and I love it. So if you don't take anything else away from this, remember to use positive words and positive images about birth